Hey guys, it's Haley and welcome to another bookish video. Today I am coming at you with my ultimate thriller guide. So basically I'm going to break down every single traditionally published thriller author that I could think of off the top of my head. I literally listed them all out, and I'm going to be giving you the rundown on every single one of them. So a few months back for my Patreon exclusive video, I did a tier ranking of every single thriller author that I've read from, and I'm going to be using that same list of authors. If you want to see that tier rank, that's a Patreon exclusive video, so you'll have to sign up for my Patreon, which is linked down below. But in this video, I'm going to kind of give you the rundown of the types of thrillers that they write, the tropes that they focus on, if I overall like the majority of their books or not, and some of my favorite books from them. So you can use this guide either for yourself, if you're shopping for yourself. It can be really overwhelming in a bookstore to just look at all of these selections and all of these authors with so many extensive backlists and trying to figure out like who would be a good fit for you. Or you can use this as a guide if you know your friends' reading taste to shop for them and gift for them this upcoming holiday season. It's really hard to know just based on the synopsis on the back of a book what your friend might really like, so please feel free to use this as a gifting guide as well. And on the topic of gifting, I do want to talk about the sponsor of today's video, which is Ana Luisa, and I absolutely love Ana Luisa for holiday gifting as well. I've worn their jewelry for years now. I'm literally wearing some right now. I absolutely love this like pearlescent pendant necklace, so pretty, and these earrings are just so pretty. I absolutely love them. They have some simple, classic dainty pieces, kind of like what I'm wearing. And these are some of my favorites too, just so easy to pop in, like one of these piercings. I have like my wedding jewelry in now, but when I switch my jewelry, I'll definitely be wearing these. So they have these simple classic stuff, but they also have more bold and trendy pieces as well. Really just any jewelry for any type of person that you're wanting to gift for this holiday season. And of course, all of Ana Luisa's jewelry pieces are sustainably and ethically made. They last so long. I have really sensitive ears in particular, and the Ana Luisa earrings I can keep in for days and days. They're the only ones pretty much that don't cause some kind of irritation on my ears. They last beautifully. They just look so classic, and they really fit every single type of mood. So if you're shopping for mom or like quirky little Gen Z sister or bestie, whoever, everyone in between, you can find an Ana Luisa piece that will suit them. And they are like really luxury, super high quality, but very affordable for the quality that we're talking about. And you can save even more when you use my code HaileyHughes20 for 20% off. So I will go ahead and link Ana Luisa down below so you can check them out and gift anyone in your life a thriller book and a beautiful piece of jewelry. I feel like that is like the ultimate girl gift, honestly. Thank you so much to Ana Luisa for sponsoring this video, and now let's go ahead and get into the thriller guide. So the first author that I'm going to talk about is Sarah Pinborough, and I feel like I would describe her writing as more domestic suspense than thriller. There's a lot of like familial dynamic, relationship dynamic. If you don't like cheating partner, domestic kind of situation, you're not going to like her books. Luckily, I do like that kind of situation, but there's definitely a lot of buildup in her books rather than like exciting times the entire way through. I feel like I'm more reading to try to figure out the mystery and put the pieces together rather than being thrilled throughout the entire book. I would say my two favorites from Sarah Pinborough are of course Behind Her Eyes. I also like the adaptation of this book as well. And I really loved Insomnia, which also includes characters from Behind Her Eyes. I gave both of those books 4.5 and 4 stars respectively. They both kind of play on the unreliable narrator trope, and it deals with like insomnia, sleep loss, dreams, tropes like that, which is kind of like a recurring theme in Sarah Pinborough's novels. You can never really trust her narrators, which I enjoy that as well. But overall, she's not like a die-hard favorite for me. If you like British domestic suspense, you might like her, but she's not an all-time favorite for me. Next up, let's talk about Darcy Bell. Oh my god. She writes really short, like popcorn thrillers, almost like chick-lit-y type of books. It really is based around women and women's experience in like a spooky or treacherous situation. She doesn't really stick to one type of trope. She actually has like from haunted house to bitch I'm gonna steal your life and domestic thriller to everything in between. She really has a lot of variation. And unfortunately, the ratings that I've given her books have also seen a lot of variation. There's no consistency to how I feel about her books. I absolutely loved A Simple Favor. That was like, I believe, a 4 or 4.5 star book for me, and I loved the adaptation of that one as well. But unfortunately, everything that I've read from her since that book has kind of flopped. If you're looking for like a super quick, entertaining read, then maybe pick up Darcy Bell, but really the only one I would die hard suggest you read from her is A Simple Favor. Next up, we have Gillian Flynn. Oh my god, I love her. She can do no wrong. I think her writing style is just gorgeous, beautiful, and so consistent across all of her books. I've given all of her books 4 stars and above. They are some of my favorite thrillers of all time. My favorites are Gone Girl and The Grown Up, a little tiny spooky novella that I highly recommend. And I actually have an entire author ranking video for Gillian Flynn where I go through her entire backlist in detail. So I will link that up above and down below. But basically, she really goes into, again, feminist themes in thrillers. It's all like surrounding a woman's experience with not necessarily something like totally outlandish, kind of like an everyday struggle of being a woman, like a philandering husband or a strained relationship with a mother, but takes it to an extreme place. She goes really dark, especially with family dynamics. And again, the thing that stands out for me with Gillian Flynn is just the strength of her writing style. It is so airtight, and the pacing and the twists, just everything is wonderful. Next up, let's talk about Ashley Winstead. This is another thriller author that for me, her writing style really shines. So beautifully written. I highlight so much every time that I read an Ashley Winstead book. I have not read any of her romances, but I have read every single one of her thrillers besides her newest release, which I'm saving to read this month for my book club. It's actually my book club pick this month for November. Everything else that I've read from her, I've really enjoyed. So dark, so hard-hitting, so twisty. She really just goes to that place that I need her to go to, and I really appreciate that. I've given both of the things that I've read from her 5 stars, but not only have I given them 5 stars, they've been in my top 3 thrillers of the past 2 years, and I have a sneaking suspicion that Midnight is the Darkest Hour will end up in my favorites of this year as well. I really don't think you can go wrong with Ashley Winstead. She has really commentary heavy thrillers, and I just absolutely love them. Dark content though, so please do look up trigger warnings. Another one of my absolute favorites, let's talk about Jennifer Hillier. This is another thriller author that I've given no less than 4 stars to all of her books, including her debut. Her debut is one of the most impressive thriller debuts that I've read. I absolutely love her entire backlist. She does really wonderful, suspenseful, and twisty thrillers with great romance subplot. It does not take away. If anything, it adds to the story, and I love her writing style. She does this thing where she kind of hints to the reader what's going to happen, what the twist is, just a couple paragraphs or a page before it's revealed to the characters. So it lands for the reader before we see it landing for our main character. It is so genius. I absolutely love every single thing that she does. Like, I am obsessed with Jennifer Hillier. I really implore you to watch that ranking video because I go in depth with all of her books. She writes a lot about like private investigatory vibes. Like it's definitely giving cheating husband, but it takes it a little bit further than that. And she does have a level of darkness similar to Ashley Winstead that I really appreciate. If you really like Karen Slaughter and you're looking for something similar, I would highly recommend Jennifer Hillier. She is phenomenal and so consistent. I feel like if you like one of her books, you're gonna like them all. Next up, we have Sally Hepworth. This is an Australian thriller author, and I've only read a couple from her extensive backlist. I'm very intrigued to read more though, because I've absolutely loved the 2 that I read from her. It seems like she writes more, again, like the first author I talked about, like domestic suspense. It's not like this crazy heart-pumping situation all the way through, especially in the case of my favorite from her, which is The Good Sister. That is one of my favorite thrillers of this year, and it goes really deep into family dynamics, family trauma, psychological thriller vibes, and both The Soulmate and The Good Sister, the 2 that I've read from her, kind of have that same energy. I really like the way that she writes her characters, and she always folds in this like mental health kind of commentary. So I don't know, sometimes that doesn't hit for people, but for me, I've really enjoyed. Chevy Stevens, I've only read a couple from this author, but again, I've loved them both, the 2 that I've read. These are much more thrilling thrillers. There are mystery elements, of course, but this is more about the heart-pumping, high-octane pacing and the ride of the book. We are not just in it to have the reveal at the end, but we're along for the ride, feeling exactly what the characters are feeling. My favorite from Chevy Stevens is Never Let You Go, Never Let Me Go. Yeah, Never Let You Go. And it's about a woman with her kids and they're fleeing her abusive ex-partner. It is so scary, so thrilling, kept me on the edge of my seat until the very end, and I've heard that a few of her other books go even darker. In particular, I've heard Still Missing is like one of the most hard-hitting, thrilling thrillers out there, so I cannot wait to get to that one soon. All right, let's talk about Miss Frida McFadden. She is the queen of Kindle Unlimited. She releases 1 million books a year, and half of them are allegedly not original material. I've talked about this before in my reading vlog where I read all of Frida McFadden's, or not all, that would be insane, a few of Frida McFadden's books. I think I read 4 of them, and it seems that multiple of her books are allegedly light plagiarism. She takes plots that she's read or seen in other places, and it seems that that gets co-opted for her work, and I refuse to support something like that. You can do your own research and see really the depth of it. It is absolutely insane and really horrible in my opinion. But again, all of these things are alleged. And although I have enjoyed a couple of her books, a lot of them read as just really lazy. The way that like Darcy Bell is a popcorn thriller kind of author. They read really fast and they're kind of throwaway. Frida McFadden is the same way, but they don't feel as fleshed out as a Darcy Bell book. Even though I don't love all of Darcy Bell's books, Frida McFadden's just give like a almost like careless energy. I forget them as soon as I read them, despite my enjoyment of them. And to support someone who it seems has co-opted others' ideas, I just cannot support that. So I know people are kind of split on Frida McFadden, but that is where I stand. That is my opinion. I'm not telling you to not read her or to read her. I'm letting you form your own opinion. So take with that what you will. Let's talk about Miss Natasha Preston. I have a very fraught relationship with Natasha Preston. I've liked a couple from her. The ones that stand out to me are The Lost and The Cellar. Those are the 2 first books, or 2 of the first books that I read from her, and I gave them like 3.5 and 4 stars. But all the rest have literally been 1 and 2 stars. Like, I can't even tell you how maddening and rage full a lot of her books make me, because they're just so YA. Okay, she does write YA thrillers, so it makes sense, but they're so frustratingly written. The characters are so two-dimensional. Nothing happens on page, everything happens off page. There's almost no action. They go super, super, super fast, and they're so easy to read, but literally almost nothing happens, and every single book ends on a cliffhanger. It is so unsatisfying. So I'm sure there are people out there that eat this shit up. I did for a couple of her books, but it seems to me that the theme with Natasha Preston is that a lot of her synopses are great ideas and sound like they would be awesome books, but the execution is lacking. Next up, let's talk about Zoya Stage. I have read, I believe, all but one of her backlist, and I've really enjoyed a couple and then really not enjoyed a couple. By far, the standout for me is Baby Teeth. This is a creepy kid thriller, and it seems like all of her books kind of focus on a mother-daughter relationship, or like an attachment relationship dynamic, and the sinister psychological nature that can happen when that bond is, you know, insecure. I really appreciate her in-depth writing style, but sometimes it does drag, and I believe, I'm trying to remember where her books are set. I don't believe they take place in the US. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they kind of read like they don't take place in the US, and if they do, I don't believe they were written by someone who resides in the US, if that makes sense. Like, you can definitely tell for Lisa Jewell, like example, you can tell when she writes a book that's set in the US that she's British, because she will say things like, oh, someone's going to In-N-Out in a state where In-N-Out is not a chain, like it's not there. So there are some of those kind of errors that I've noticed with Zoya Stage. Like I said, sometimes they do drag, but I love stuff with family dynamics. I'm kind of a sucker for those kind of thrillers, so it's a hit or miss for me. And just speaking of Lisa Jewell, during the last one, what a coincidence, Lisa Jewell is another one of my all-time favorite thriller authors. She writes UK-based, for the most part, mystery thrillers. She really shines with her characters. She really focuses on character development, character dynamics. They're so intricate and fucked up. All of her characters feel so real and genuine, but they're not these like perfect ideal people. They feel very human, and she kind of leaves it up to the reader to interpret, is this person a good person? Is it not a good character? Like, they kind of live in this perpetual shade of gray, really similar to how actual people are. None of her characters ever read like archetypes. It's more like, again, just leaving it all up to the reader. And I love the commentary and mental health pieces that she includes in her books. Her twists always slay. The pacing always just sucks me in and doesn't let me go until the last page. I absolutely love her. She's another one that I have an entire ranking video for her whole backlist, and it was really, really hard to make that video because I love so many of her books, so pitting them against each other was so difficult, but I absolutely love her. Honestly, I recommend her entire backlist. Probably if I had to pick a favorite, I think her two most recent releases would be my favorite. I love The Night She Disappeared, which was from 2021, and I absolutely love None of This Is True from this year, but one of my other favorites from her, like way back in her backlist, is The House We Grew Up In. That one is so underrated. Next up, let's talk about Alex North. I know a lot of people are kind of split on this author. He's written two like kidnappy, children are going missing and there's a serial killer on the loose kind of books. The Shadows and The Whisper Man. I gave The Whisper Man 4 stars and The Shadows 5 stars, which I know is an unpopular opinion, but I just like the way that these books read. There's a very specific, like, creepy atmosphere to them, and I love a kidnapping slash missing kid trope, so both of these really shine for me in that respect. Also, The Shadows really sucked me in because it has that, like, dream aspect. I love when dreams are a trope in a thriller, and I don't know, I just really like Alex North's writing style. I believe that he's a UK author, and I tend to like British thrillers, so that kind of tracks for me, but Again, I know he's hit or miss for a lot of people, so take with that what you will. Next up, let's talk about Margot Hunt, my domestic thriller queen. Margot Hunt is the queen of rich people drama, just toxic suburban women. If you are looking for drama and scandal and how far would you go for your family, Margot Hunt is your girl. She writes stuff that is so fast-paced, so enthralling. It just will suck me in, and by the time I know, I don't even realize it, by, you know, an hour in, I feel like I'm already halfway through one of her books. By far, my favorite from her is For Better or For Worse. Oh my God. That one had me by the throat the entire time. I'm obsessed with it, and I feel like she is so underrated, but I really like a lot from her backlist as well. Next up, we have Megan Miranda, and she is very hit or miss for me. I would say I've definitely had more misses than hits from Megan Miranda. Her books just kind of feel very one note. They're more slower paced, small town mystery than like a heart pumping thriller. And they kind of have this formulaic nature to them that I don't love. My favorites from her have been The Perfect Stranger and The Last House Guest. I really loved both of those. I believe I gave those 4 and 5 stars, but all the rest have been like 2, 3-star books. Really, really slow paced, really, really boring. You can skip all the rest unless you really like a slow, atmospheric small town mystery, but those two are the standouts for me. Next up, we have Samantha Downing, and I feel like it's really hard to capture the type of books that Samantha Downing writes. She's kind of all over the board, and my ratings for her books have been all over the board as well. I think I've had a 2-star, a 3-star, a 4.5 star, and a 4-star from her, so kind of varied. But the word that comes to mind when I think of Samantha Downing, there's 2: creative and devious. All of her characters just feel very devious. They are not really upstanding citizens that we're following. We're not following like this poor housewife who her child got stolen away from her or something like that. We are always following a character that's kind of untrustworthy, kind of villainous, or maybe even just somebody completely unlikable. In the case of 2 of her books, we're following murderer. Actually, wait, 3 of her books, we are following murderers, like known murderers. So if you like a killer POV, you will probably like Samantha Downing. I absolutely loved For Your Own Good. It kind of has like dark academia vibes. It's set at this hoity-toity private school. It is so, so good. And it has second-person POV. So if any of that sounds up your alley, you gotta check out Samantha Downing. The one that I would not recommend is He Started It. That is a total outlier for me. Don't love it. Next up, we have Darby Kane. I think Darby Kane is so, so underrated. I've given all of her books pretty high ratings, and she tends to write, again, like more feminist thrillers that are centered around women, women's issues, and they have a commentary for women specifically. I absolutely loved Pretty Little Wife. That is her debut. It read like a Karen Slaughter. It was so fast-paced. Actually, all of her books are pretty fast-paced and twisty. I would say the least fast-paced was The Last Invitation, but The Replacement Wife, so, so good if you like an unreliable narrator. And honestly, all of her books have pretty like morally gray, unreliable female narrators, so I really, really like that. They're just traditional thrillers. Like when I think about Darby Kane, I think about kind of like Gillian Flynn, like an OG thriller. That is the feeling that I get when I read Darby Kane. Next up, we have Geneva Rose, and y'all, if this video was being made last year, I would have raved about her, and I would have been saying, if you love a fast-paced drama, scandalous thriller, you gotta read Geneva Rose, because One of Us is Dead. I loved The Perfect Marriage is like the viral TikTok thriller, but her release from this year, I'm scared. I did not like it. I gave it 1 star. It's one of my worst books of the year. So I don't know what happened to Geneva this year, but beforehand, I'm just gonna pretend like that one doesn't exist. She was writing really fun, fast-paced, scandalous drama type of thrillers, and a lot of people love, love, love The Perfect Marriage. I thought One of Us is Dead was a little bit better, but they both have that like catty, drama, twisty feel to them. Next up, let's talk about Ashley Audrain. Again, another thriller author who writes about mainly motherhood. That is like the big theme with Ashley Audrain, and I really enjoy her writing style. It's more literary, more lyrical, but not anything that slows down the pace or makes it hard to read. Her books are really easy to read. They just have like a very specific quality to the writing that I really, really love. It feels like I'm reading something beautiful rather than just like a trashy little thriller. Great commentary on motherhood. I absolutely love The Push. It was one of my favorite books of a few years ago. Sherry Lapina is another author that is just all over the board for me. I've given some of her books 2 stars and some of her books 5 stars. There's really no consistency in there. The only consistency that I can see with Sherry Lapina is she writes really suburban books. They just feel cozy and easy to read. Like all the neighbors are looking out their windows, spying on one another, and we're trying to figure out which one is the evil one, the bad egg that's causing drama in the neighborhood. So if you like those like neighborhood feeling kind of thrillers, you will love Sherry Lapina books. My favorites from her are her release from this year, Everyone Here Is Lying. I loved that one. Has a really fun trope at the end that I want to talk about, but it's a spoiler, so I won't. But if you like books similar to me, you will love that one. I also loved The Unwanted Guest, I believe. It was a snowy, isolated whodunit where people are getting picked off one by one as they're trapped at an inn during a blizzard. So good. Lucinda Berry. I love Lucinda Berry. I love almost everything that I've read from her except for When She Returned. I gave that one 2 stars, but everything else has been a 4-star or above. She actually used to be a practicing therapist, and if you know me, you know that I am a therapist with my own private practice, so she does mental health rep just better than anyone. All of her books are really dark, really gritty, but they feel so real. I am not a crier with thrillers, but I've cried at multiple of Lucinda Berry's books because they're just so visceral. The emotions are so strong. You are not going to forget the stories that you read from Lucinda Berry. My by far and away favorite from her is Saving Noah. Massive trigger warnings, but if you can handle a really dark book that might cause you to question some things, I highly recommend it. Next up, let's talk about Kirsten Modglin, another Kindle Unlimited queen. I just feel like there's not a lot of thought going into these books. If you're publishing like 3 books a year or even more than that, I just have a hard time believing that a lot of care and attention is going into it, and I think that comes across in her writing. Unfortunately, I have not really enjoyed many of her books. I liked the arrangement when it first came out and it had all the hype around it, but the continuation of the series just kind of seems like cash grab vibes, and I've given quite a few of her books 1 and 2 stars. They just feel really forgettable, really throwaway. There are a lot of plot holes. I'm not the biggest fan. CJ Tudor, I actually haven't enjoyed any of their books. The consistent piece for me is that CJ Tudor books really abandon the characters. There's almost no meaningful character relationships, development, depth. It's all about the plot. So if you are a plot-driven girly, maybe you will like CJ Tudor books. For me, none of them have really worked out. They all just kind of fall a little flat, especially The Drift. Oh God, I hated The Drift. I'll be totally real. I did not like The Drift one bit at all. It was so confusing, and the plot just, it was just all over the place. Their thrillers just feel really messy. That is the word that comes to mind. All right, let's talk about Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pecknin, iconic author duo that I guess had a split this year. The book that they released this year was only by Sarah Pecknin, so I don't know what happened to Miss Greer, but I've really enjoyed the majority of the books that they've written together. They always have like a little psychological spin aspect on it. I'm wondering if this is possibly a duo of colleagues that work in the mental health field and started to write books together. I have like a very close friend to me who is also a therapist, and I could totally see us like in 20 years joining together and becoming a little thriller author duo. I think that would be so fun. But that's kind of the vibe that I get from their books. They're not very heavy mental health vibes like Lucinda Berry, but kind of like the more unethical, what would happen if a therapist was so unethical that they did this horrible thing to their client, and they're just crazy over the top thrillers. And they can be kind of hit or miss, but for the most part, I have fun and I'm entertained. By far my favorite from them is Anonymous Girl. I gave that one 5 stars. Alice Feeney, wow. Alice Feeney is so consistent. She is a queen of twists. I know going into an Alice Feeney book that I'm gonna be blown away at some point. If you like a twisty thriller, you're gonna like Alice Feeney. Now, you might not love the execution because sometimes her twists can be really, really divisive. Like with Daisy Darker, for example, I had that one fall a little flat for me. Other people were absolutely obsessed with the major twist in that book, but it just didn't hit for me. Whereas something like, oh my God, Sometimes I Lie, I love that book. I love that book. And her book this year, Good Bad Girl, I ate it up. Her books really dive into character dynamics, but they're definitely more plot centered. The plot is what moves it along rather than the character development, but she doesn't forget about the character development piece. And she is just the queen of twists. Absolutely love it. Mary Kubica is another like domestic thriller queen. I picture definitely like a hoity-toity rich people drama, suburban theme when I think of Mary Kubica. They are just not that deep and a ton of fun. Some shoddy mental health rep. I will say Mary Kubica is not the best with mental health. Maybe she needs to take a little peek into the DSM, but other than that, her books are really fun and enjoyable. For the most part, I really liked Local Women Missing, and Just the Nicest Couple was super fun as well. Shanora Williams, oh my gosh, I recently discovered her this year and read her entire backlist of thrillers. Have not delved into her romance selection, which is super extensive, but I have read her thrillers. And I've had 2 that were kind of in the middle, fun, entertaining, and one that is an all-time favorite. She writes definitely like drama, scandalous thrillers with super uber rich people. It's like a peek into how the other half lives, I feel like is how it is to read a Shanora Williams book. Just obscene wealth, drama that comes along with it. It's so juicy and entertaining. I just eat it up. And The Perfect Ruin is one of my favorite thrillers of all time. It is the all-time best bitch I'm gonna snatch your life thriller. Absolutely love it. Alex Michaelides, I know, is pretty controversial. Some people love him, some people hate him. I kind of fall on the side of loving it. I know that that's like a very controversial take, but I don't know. The Silent Patient kept me up all night reading, and I believe that I finished The Maidens in a day or less as well. So obviously something about Alex Michaelides' writing style clicks with me. It really does feel like you're reading a lot of pages very fast to get to the big twist. It's not really about spending time in the world of the characters. It's more about that mystery payoff when you figure out exactly what happened. But if you're a plot-driven girl, I think you will like it. Ruth Ware has been all over the board for me. I've given her 2 and 3 stars and a lot of 4 and 5 stars as well. She is a British thriller writer, so that very like typical British UK kind of style. If you don't like that, you're not gonna like Miss Ruthie, but I do like that, so a lot of that stuff works for me. Some of my favorites from her are The Lying Game and oh gosh, what is that other one is In a Dark Wood. I love those 2. She does a lot of dual timeline, like one in the past, one in the present, and both of those timelines have mysteries that kind of intersect and affect each other. We're trying to figure out the mystery from both timelines and how they're connected. It's a good blend of mystery and thrill, and I think she's pretty reliable if you're just looking for something to like read on a vacation or something like that. Ruth Ware gives like really good airport thriller for me. S.A. Cosby, for me, knocks it out of the park every single time. His thrillers read like action movies, breakneck pace, but even though it's the plot driving the book forward, the character relationships and the main characters especially are so dynamic. There's so much depth to them. You care so much about their journey, and it makes the whole rest of the plot that goes off the deep end so much more visceral, so much deeper because you care so much. And these thrillers have, like I said, just a heart-pumping breakneck pace to them. Feels like an action movie where you're speeding in a car and you're flipping pages at the speed of light. Two of my all-time favorite books are Blacktop Wasteland and Razorblade Tears. Also loved All the Sinners Bleed from this year and My Darkest Prayer. I just think S.A. Cosby can do no wrong. If you want something heart-pumping, fast-paced, with really lovable characters, you gotta read his backlist. John Mars. If I could get into a physical altercation with one thriller author, it would definitely be John Mars. I just feel like he needs to be smacked around a little bit. I would really get in the ring with him. And I've said this before, like, I don't know, he just pisses me off. And what pisses me off even more is that I've liked a couple of his books. It's either a love it or a hate it situation. Like his more sci-fi kind of books, The Passengers, I stan, I love it, it's great, it's a slay, read those. All of his domestic thrillers, please burn it. Please fucking burn it. Why are you trying to write about women's issues and doing it horrifically? Okay, you need some female sensitivity readers. You need someone checking you. And why do you always feel the need to write about pregnant women? It is so weird. It is so weird. It is so odd. Please stop doing it. I will fight you. I will keep giving you 1 star. Actually, I've just stopped reading him altogether because he pisses me off. If he comes out with another like sci-fi kind of thriller, like The One, I'm in. I'll pick him up again. But if he keeps on this weird pregnancy train, I'm literally gone, John. You lost me. Next up, let's talk about J.T. Ellison. J.T. Ellison to me just gives like very middle of the road. Like I don't feel really passionate about their books. I don't hate any of their books. It's just kind of like, we're there. What I will say is their books are very atmospheric. It always feels like it's a vibe as I'm reading it, especially like Her Dark Lies. I loved Her Dark Lies. It takes place on like an isolated, rainy, cold island. And Lie to Me, I remember the main thing from that book also being the atmosphere. It was like rainy, dreary, cozy thriller vibes. But the plots do not really stand out to me, to be totally honest. It's just kind of giving forgettable. Megan Golden, I really enjoy, specifically her more recent releases. I really loved Night Swim. I think that one is her best. Escape Room was kind of Stay Awake was like okay, enjoyable, but again, just kind of giving like middle of the road thriller. I feel like she picks a theme and she does it well, but it's not very consistent. There's not like a consistent mood that I get from a Megan Golden book. Kind of middle of the road, but if you're gonna read one, go with Night Swim. Oh my god, talk about somebody that's all over the board. Rachel Hawkins, I don't know what to think of this woman. I don't know what she's doing. I know what she's trying to do. I think she's trying to like really have some commentary, but it always gives a little laughable. Like it always gives, I really can't take it seriously. And maybe she is memeing and I'm totally reading it wrong and she's like, LOL, this is so fun, so silly, so goofy. But for me, it's giving a little bit try hard and it doesn't land, if that makes sense. She always has really good atmosphere. I feel like she picks a place and she really goes in on the setting. Like Reckless Girls had that beachy setting, and The Villa had like a really nice international setting. But the execution of the plots, not for me, not for me. I think my favorite of hers has been The Wife Upstairs, and it was just completely ridiculous domestic drama Jane Eyre retelling, and anything that like takes classic literature and memes it, I'm here for it. Let's talk about my queen, A.R. Torre. I absolutely love A.R. Torre. She gives scandalous thriller. If you want a thriller with a little bit of smut, a little bit of romance, a little bit of cam girl vibes, you're gonna like A.R. Torre. I feel like she does not take herself too seriously. Her books are a ton of fun, super light, super quick, so fast-paced and easy to read. My favorites from her are, of course, the Girl in 6E series. I love the Girl in 6E. That trilogy is one of my favorites of all time. And I also love, oh my god, what's the name of it? Oh, Every Last Secret. Every Last Secret is so good. It's a bitch I'm gonna snatch your life thriller. So summery, so fun. I feel like A.R. Torre writes pool books. J.P. Delaney, Okay, unfortunately kind of a flop for me. He does a lot of, I don't know if this is a man or a woman actually. They do a lot of like science-y kind of thrillers. Like I remember like A Smart Home and like a man falling in love with a piece of technology, like a clone or something. Those were themes in their books. But I didn't love those. Those felt really flat to me. What I did like from J.P. Delaney is when they took more of a detour into like domestic drama, family dynamic, morally gray, like crazy morals situation, which I feel like they were trying to go for with the technology aspects as well, but that just didn't connect with me. Playing Nice though, that one slayed. I give it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Janelle Brown for me is giving 2.5 out of 5 stars. I feel like her books are really, really overwritten. Like you could cut out 100 pages of all of her books and they're always giving 2.5, 3 stars, average, not a lot going on. Meh. Tiffany D. Jackson, my YA thriller queen. She is like one of the only people that I will pick up a YA thriller from because she's so consistently amazing. Her writing style, her character development, the twists, the pacing, all of it is slaying the game. I love every single one of her books that I've read, and I've read all of them except for one, and that is White Smoke. I've heard that is everyone's like notoriously least favorite of her books, so I've been putting off reading it. But if you're gonna read one, read The Weight of Blood. Read it now. Read it immediately. It is a Carrie retelling modernized, and it is simply a modern classic to me. I consider it a modern classic. All right, next up we have Simone St. James. Unfortunately, everything that I've read from her has been 2 stars. She does dual timeline thrillers, but one is usually very, very historical and one is in the present, and there's a lot of paranormal themes in her books, and I don't love paranormal thrillers, and I also don't love historical settings. So while these books might be enjoyable, I couldn't tell you because they just have a lot of things in there that are not suited to my tastes, so I'm not the biggest fan. Next up we have Lucy Foley. I'm not quite sure how to say her name because I keep on thinking that I get it right and then I hear someone say it the opposite way. But I'm kind of split on Lucy Foley. I think a lot of her books are overhyped. She does kind of like locked door mystery, locked room mystery. I don't remember the exact term, but basically like a group of people in a place and then a murder happens and you're trying to figure out who was killed, who killed them, and why. That is the structure of all of her books, which is really great if you have this like varied cast of characters and every single person seems like they have a motive and you're trying to see like where the dynamics overlap and who could possibly be at fault. I think that's really fun, but I do think her books are overhyped. I don't think they're like the best thing since sliced bread, which sometimes people talk about them as if they're that way, especially when the guest list first came out. Oh my god, the hype around that book. I do like the guest list though. I do think it's a decent book. My favorite of hers though is The Hunting Party. I think it's severely underrated. It takes the guest list and puts a more like dramatic, scandalous twist on it. The characters are just so much more fun and over the top, and it has the snowy, isolated setting that I love. Next up, we have May Cobb, and May Cobb writes suburban, summer, southern thrillers. If you like just like society Texas ladies going about their toxic business, cheating on their husbands and stabbing each other in the back, you're gonna love May Cobb. Like that is what she is all about, and honestly it speaks to my little Texan soul. Like I eat that shit up. It's all toxic, it's all horrible. Everyone in her books are pretty much like unlikable people, but I'm on board for the drama. And my favorite of hers is her debut, The Hunting Wives. I absolutely love that book. It's like if Mean Girls was set with adults instead of teenagers. Next up, let's talk about S.E. Lines. This is another UK-based thriller author, and S.E. Lines writes a lot about family dynamics, a lot of commentary heavy things on character dynamics, so y'all already can probably guess that I really like their work. Particularly, I like Mother by S.E. Lines, The Baby Shower, and The Housewarming. Those are the standouts, and they are a little bit slower paced. I think they're harder to get into for people who are more plot-driven thriller readers, but if you're a character-driven reader like me, something like Mother, you're going to eat it up. The Housewarming is for more plot-driven people, but really all of her books have like that same energy of this is about our character's journey. This is about the commentary, whether it's, you know, mental health or feminism or something like that. There's always an underlying theme. There's more to say than just this mystery plot, and the mystery plot itself is also super interesting, and the twists are shocking to me. So I really have a great opinion of S.E. Lines, although I know their work is not for everyone. Next up, we have Liane Moriarty, another Australian thriller author on this list, and her books are definitely quieter, slower, longer. I don't know if I would necessarily call them thrillers even, all of them. It's giving definitely more domestic suspense, although some of them have just massive twists that I think put them in the thriller category a little bit more than others. Obviously, I love Big Little Lies, that one and the series. Just amazing. 9 Perfect Strangers? No, 9? Yeah, 9 Perfect Strangers, is that her other one? I like the series more than the book for that one. And then there are a few more that are kind of hit or miss. My mom loved Apples Never Fall. That one was a little too long for me, so I didn't end up picking it up when I got my arc of it. But if you can get into a slower paced, longer book and you like generational elements, family drama, I think you can really get into Liane Moriarty. Next up, we have my queen. We have Karen Slaughter. I love Karen Slaughter. She writes definitely more crime focused books. There's always like an investigator, a police perspective, a coroner perspective, a lawyer perspective, somebody who is involved in the crime in some way. We are usually following their perspective. And it's always very high stakes. We're talking not just one person is going missing, a whole generation of people is going missing, being terrorized, being kidnapped. There's a ring, there's an operation of some sort. It's always very big, high stakes crime that we are following. And usually if I heard that description, I would be like, no, it's not for me. But there's something about Karen Slaughter's writing. It just has so much empathy and humanity. Her stories feel real. Like, it's the closest to the feeling of true crime without being exploitative, but you can, you know, explore the things that it feels safe for women to explore sometimes with true crime in a way that doesn't affect, obviously, real victims. My favorite book of all time is by Karen Slaughter. It is Pretty Girls. I literally just got a tattoo for this book, and I literally have it tattooed on my body. If you can see that locket, it's still healing, but I absolutely love that book. I named my book club after that book. I would die for Pretty Girls. It is the best thriller ever written, in my opinion. And the Grant County series is amazing. False Witness is amazing. The Good Daughter is amazing. Like, I just love almost everything that I've picked up from her. They have such emotional weight and such advanced commentary, especially for the time that these books were written. I'm always impressed with Karen Slaughter that even when I read a book from her that is from the late 90s or early 2000s, it doesn't feel like it was written that long ago. It feels like it could have been written today, which I think is really impressive. Next up, we have B.A. Paris, who again, I think fits more in the domestic suspense category, especially with her books like The Therapist, The Breakdown, and all of those books are just kind of giving average to me. There's one that's absolutely abysmal, and that is The Prisoner. They didn't even get one of the main characters' names right. They misnamed the person in the synopsis, which to me is like kind of unforgivable, kind of insane that they would not catch that. But B.A. Paris also wrote one of my favorites of all time, so we're all over the board here. Behind Closed Doors, story about a woman held hostage by her abusive husband. Oh my god, it's visceral, it is evil, it is one of the most heart-pumping, gut-wrenching things I've ever read. So good, one of my favorites of all time, but all the other ones you can skip up. Next up we have Peter Swanson, and I'll be real, I only like Peter Swanson when he's memeing, okay? Every Value Break was so campy and so ridiculous, and that's the only one of his books that I've enjoyed. All the rest of them are giving boring. And I know what you're probably thinking, Hailey, the Kind Worth Killing, the iconic Kind Worth Killing, to me it was giving boring. To me it was giving predictable. It was like every other bitch, you know what I mean? Like all the books that I've read from him are giving every other bitch, just basic ass thriller, not doing anything new, inventive, original, except for Every Value Break. And that's like kind of the one that everybody, if this camera dies while I'm mid filming one more fucking time, I'm just gonna throw it off the roof. I'm literally gonna throw it off the roof. Why do they not make cameras that tell you when your camera's dying until it's 30 seconds before it's gonna die? I will never understand it. I will never understand it. Anyway, Peter Swanson. When he is campy, when he's memeing with Every Value Break, it's so over the top. That's the only time I like him. Everything else, in my opinion, you can skip. Now, some people will tell you that's a crime and you should read X, Y, and Z, but this is my channel, so it's my opinion. Liv Constantine, amazing sister author duo. They write scandalous rich people drama domestic thrillers. They've written one of my favorite thrillers of all time, which is The Last Mrs. Parrish. It's a bitch I'm gonna steal your life thriller, and it is absolutely iconic, perfect summer vibes. I also really like The Stranger in the Mirror and The Senator's Wife from them. Didn't love The Wife Stalker, but everything else has been pretty reliably fun, entertaining, juicy drama. Also really like the characters in these books. They're unlikable, but in the best, most scandalous way. Next up, let's talk about Holly Jackson. She is another YA thriller author. You probably have heard of her in regards to the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series, which I love that series, except for the last book, which was kind of disappointing. But I also love 5 Survive from her, which is a newer release. Super fast-paced, all takes place in one night kind of thriller. These are some of the only YA thrillers that I can stand. Basically, the Jacksons do it for me for YA thrillers. We have Tiffany D. Jackson and Holly Jackson. Those two, they just get it right with YA thrillers. I don't really branch out outside of the books that they write because they're just so good. And A Good Girl's Guide to Murder and 5 Survive both have this like air of just teenage characters that feel real. They don't feel dumbed down. It doesn't feel like a out of touch adult was writing these teenage characters. They feel like clued in and real and human and dynamic and not just like flat child characters. And the twists are actually really great, really effective. I was super entertained, read them really fast, loved them. Riley Sager, oh my god, I could talk about Riley Sager for hours and hours and hours. I have loved every single thing he's ever written. Riley Sager just knows the vibes, he knows the twists, he doesn't take himself too seriously. There's always like a little bit of tropiness and a little bit of campiness to his books that I absolutely love. Every book has its own very unique aesthetic, and I love that, but they still feel consistent. Like, I feel like when you're reading Riley Sager, you know that you're reading Riley Sager. He has a very, very strong voice, which I appreciate. I always get got by those twists every single time. I have an entire ranking video talking about Riley Sager's entire backlist, but basically you cannot go wrong with anything from Riley Sager, especially if you like something that's a little bit more tropey, a little bit more campy, a little bit like self-aware, playing on itself. Like, oh god, that Netflix series with Kristen Bell, if you liked that, that was kind of like playing on thrillers, The Woman in the House in the Street Across from the Window, or whatever that was, I feel like Riley Sager loved that series. And I feel like he kind of plays on that. You know what I mean? It's like self-aware tropage. I'm here for it. Taylor Adams is hit or miss, but mostly hit. I have to be real. I haven't rated anything below a 3-star, although there are some that are definitely like middle of the road, or like I can see the issues with them. The word that comes up for me when I think of Taylor Adams is unique. There's always a very specific lane when it comes to Taylor Adams books. There's a specific, unique area, setting, plot device, whatever it is that makes Taylor Adams' books stand out. They do not feel like just your average typical thriller, and just the novelty alone I appreciate, and I feel like it helps me get invested in Taylor Adams' books even if they don't quite work for me all the way. Like Hairpin Bridge did not work for me. However, No Exit is one of my favorite books of all time, and The Last Word I absolutely loved. It was crazy, it was ridiculous, it was campy, and I ended up living a plot very similar to that book, so it does have a special place in my heart. Thank you, Taylor Adams, for making me feel so seen. When you're targeted by an incel author, it's real out here. Thank you for the representation, Taylor Adams. Tarryn Fisher, however, not my favorite gal. I got to be real. I don't love Tarryn Fisher. Everything I've read from her has kind of been a flop, unfortunately. From weird comments that lean like conservative about COVID, to really confused plots, to just boring, dragging books. I don't love really anything that I've picked up from Tarryn Fisher. However, I've heard that her best books were when she was like indie published, before she got picked up by a more traditional publishing house. So I do have Marrow and Bad Mommy that I want to read. Those are on my TBR. Maybe my opinion of her will change, but as for like traditionally published books, I do not like anything that she has come out with in the past few years. The Wrong Family, what's that other one with the woman in the fucking pool or whatever? An Honest Lie. Ugh, yeah, those were definitely skippable. She writes like suburban, kind of like chick-lit-y drama books, but there are so many more better ones out there. You would be better off picking up something like an A.R. Torre or a Sherry Lapina. Robin Harding, however, does the drama right. Robin Harding always hits it out of the park for me. I don't think I've ever not loved one of her books. I believe I have an entire ranking video for her backlist as well, where I go in depth for every single book. I will link it again above and below. I just love Robin Harding's voice. It's so easy to read her writing. It's so easy to digest, and her books just have this way of sucking me in. I get locked into Robin Harding books. Every single one of her books I've read in 1 or 2 sittings. Like so easy to read, and I find that I really like her audiobooks as well. The narrators are just really good and suck me in. My favorite of hers is probably The Arrangement, maybe The Arrangement, or The Party. I love The Party. There's always like this moral dilemma element to Robin Harding thrillers that I love. Like The Party, a child gets hurt while they're at another person's house for a sleepover, so it's like, are those parents liable? And with The Arrangement, we're dealing with a sugar daddy situation and the morality of that. There's just a lot of morally gray elements that are so fun to think about how you would handle it if you were in that situation. So fun, so thrilling, so drama. Obsessed. We also have Andrea Bartz, who I think writes like summery, scandalous thrillers, but with a real element of commentary to them. In particular, The Spare Room. I love that commentary, but it didn't lose the like fun, light, campy vibe of the book, and I felt very similar about We Were Never Here. It's fun, it's scandalous, it's entertaining, but they also have a depth of commentary, and I've loved everything I picked up from her. And that is going to be it for my massive list of thriller authors. I hope you guys enjoyed this ultimate guide. Take notes, know what you want to get your friends and family for their specific reading taste, or just use it for yourself and do the same thing with Ana Luisa, linked down below. Shop for your loved ones, gifting for the holidays, and shop for yourself with my code haileyhughes20 for 20% off. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one.